Hi guys, this is Morris, and today we're going to be discussing some of the reasons why you're not getting 350 plus on OET speaking. Of course, this is not an exact science, right? But these are some possibilities of why this might be happening to you on task day. The first thing that I would like to talk to you about is the task structure. So what happens on the day of the OET speaking test, you have two speaking role plays that you're going to practice with an interlocutor. First, the interlocutor is not your examiner, okay? The interlocutor is the person who you're going to be role playing with, and your audio is going to be recorded. Later on, it will be sent to OET, where the examiners are going to give you the score. So the interlocutor is there just to practice with you, just to help you guide the conversation, but he or she is not your examiner. Now, for each of the speaking role plays, you first have 3 minutes to prepare. This 3 minute preparation includes the reading of the card for you to know what is the background of the patient, which tasks you have to cover. Then after the 3 minute preparation, you're going to have a 5 minute role play with the interlocutor. It's very important for you to use this 3 minute preparation well. For example, if you don't know the meaning of a word, if you're not sure about the pronunciation of a word, it's okay for you to ask the interlocutor during the 3 minutes preparation. Another point, if you plan on using the patient's name or the patient and the child's name or the carer's name in the beginning of the conversation, it's okay for you to ask the interlocutors, how can I address you, right? Then he or she will give you one name. It could be a real name or the fake name, and even the name of the child if needed. So with this information, you can start your role play a little bit better. And we're going to talk about how to start the role play later on today. So what happens? The 3 minutes are over, so you cannot ask any more questions, and then the 5 minutes begin. Now, another point that maybe you're not getting the 350 plus on speaking is because you don't understand the test assessment criteria. So this is the second point. Here, I have the information that you will find for free on the OET website. What is assessed in terms of the speaking assessment criteria? We are not going to go over these topics today, okay? Not on this video, but if you access these two pages, so the assessment criteria for linguistic criteria and also for the clinical communication criteria, you will learn what is expected of you. So you will know, for example, that you should not use compound questions, that is important for you to use techniques to gather information, to give information. So there are many details that you should study before you take the OET exam. Now, there are many students that they have already taken the OET exam many times, like more than 3 times. But if you don't prepare well, why should you take the exam again? First, you need to prepare well to see what are your weaknesses, what are the areas that you can improve, have a very good preparation, and then you can take the test again. So this might be the second reason why you're not getting the score you need because you don't understand the assessment criteria. And you have to understand and you have to learn the assessment criteria, which is available on OET website, in order to know how to pass the test. Now, the third point that it might be stopping you from getting a high score is language. And then I put like language plus pronunciation. So language is the basis of your test, right? You have to be able to conjugate the verbs well. You need to be able to have a very clear vocabulary. But imagine that you conjugate the sentences well, you use very good vocabulary, but the examiner later on doesn't understand what you're saying. So this is a problem of pronunciation. So you have to have a good command of English in terms of grammar and vocabulary, but also your pronunciation needs to be very clear. The fourth point that it might be stopping you from getting a high score is that you're not using transition questions. For example, I brought here one of the tasks that we use in the preparation, right? And here you have four tasks. Sometimes you're going to have more, five, six, seven tasks. Sometimes you're going to have only three. But no matter how many tasks you have to use some transition questions. For example, here, the first task, right? Imagine that I am already talking to the interlocutor, and I would say, first, Susan, let me reassure you of the support of the community and health center for both you and your mom. Is it clear? So, is it clear is a very common question that you can use for transition from one task to the other. But you should be careful not to repeat the same question all the time. So you can change for, do you understand? Is it clear so far? Do you have any other questions? Is there anything else that you would like to ask me? So these transition questions, they should come out naturally between tasks so you don't sound like a robot when you're talking to the interlocutor. Now, the next point that you should be careful with is to pay attention to what the patient says. For example, imagine that in the beginning of the role play, the interlocutor says, "Well, I have been coughing for 7 days." Okay, so you have to pay attention to this because if you ask again, "So how long have you been coughing?" But the patient has just told you that information, so you really have to pay attention to it. Or if the patient says, "Well, this is not the first time that it has happened, but this time is much worse." Okay, so there is one very interesting point that you should ask the interlocutor or the patient. So, when you say that this was not the first time, could you elaborate a little bit more? Right? So, it shows that you really are paying attention to what the patient is saying. Now, during the role play, you don't have to memorize the role play card, okay? It will be in front of you the whole time. But many times the interlocutors are going to ask you some questions that you don't have in your script. This is very common. For example, the patient might ask when we are talking about the same role play card here, a very common question is like, is my mom going to be able to recognize me on a daily basis? Well, you don't have information about that in the card, but you still have to give an answer to the interlocutor. So, what you should do, you should give an answer to the best of your knowledge, to the best of your ability, and then move on to the next task. With these extra questions, they are not checking your medical knowledge, your medical accuracy. No, they are testing you in the language to see if you're able to understand the patient and how well you can respond to the patient. The next point, which is very important, is how you start the role play. Many times the appointment will be at a walk-in clinic, for example. Then it's okay for you to ask, hi, my name is Dr. Martin. Welcome to our clinic. May I confirm your name, please? But you have to pay attention because in the background session of the card here, on the first part of the card, it's going to tell you a little bit about the story of the patient. Or if you're talking to the patient or to the daughter in this case, or to the parent, right? And you have to pay attention and see, okay, is it really polite to ask the name of the patient in the beginning, or should I already use the name of the patient in the role play as I start, for example? If I think that it's better to use the patient's name in the beginning, it's extremely important, so, or it's almost obligatory to ask this name during the 3-minute preparation. While you are still preparing the card, you can ask the interlocutor, how may I address you during the role play? or how may I call you during the role play? And then you can use this name in the beginning of your conversation. Hi, Susan. My name is Dr. Martin. Welcome to our clinic. What brings you here today? So, this is a much nicer way, a much more polite way to start the conversation. Sometimes you also are going to be obligated to use the patient's name if you're going to talk to him or her about details of his discharge. Hi, John. My name is Dr. Martin. I'm here to talk to you about the details of your discharge. How are you feeling now? So it's impossible in this case to ask the patient, may I confirm your name? Because, come on, if you're going to discharge him, you have to know his name, right? It is also very polite when the patient is coming for a second appointment and you're bringing in the results of the exams, for example. Hi, Susan, welcome back to our clinic. Today we're going to discuss the details of your exams. So note that in this one specifically, I didn't introduce myself because if it is already the second appointment that I'm having with the patient, why should I introduce myself, right? Doesn't make much sense. Now let's go to the next topic, why you might not be getting a high score on OET speaking. So how you start the role play is important, of course, but how you end the role play is just as important. So imagine that you finish the last task, right? And I put together here how you end the role play and also time management. In this example here, the last task you're going to advise the daughter what signs can be suggestive of another stroke. So when you finish the explanation, you can ask, is it clear? Do you have any other questions? And then if the interlocutor doesn't have any other questions, you can say, well, Susan, it was very nice seeing you today. I'm going to give you here this leaflet that explains a little bit more about a stroke. And if you have any question, feel free to call me at any time. That's it, a very simple, very short conclusion. In case you go too fast, for example, and the interlocutor doesn't tell you, okay, this is the end of the speaking role play, it means you still have some time to cover. What you could do in this case to manage your time is to review with the patient or with the carer some of the things that you have already told him or her today. For example, Susan, we discussed many things today, so I would like to just summarize what I have told you today. This, and that. Short and simple. This will help you to manage the time in case you run too fast on the role play tasks. Another thing about time management, which could be another thing why you're not getting a high score, is that you cannot go too fast, right? But you cannot go too slow either. And the problem is that on the day of the exam, you cannot have a watch with you, a clock, or a cell phone, nothing to control the time. Only the interlocutor can control the time. So what do you do? If you see that you have too many tasks, like 6, 7, or more tasks, try to cover as many tasks as possible, but don't rush on them. Don't go too fast, right? And if you see that you only have 3 or 4 tasks, then it's a moment that you know that you have to expand them a little bit more to try to reach as close as possible to 5 minutes. So time management is very important for you to get a high score. Well, after all these points, the last point that is very important is that you should care for the patient or for the carer or the parent that you're talking to. You have to treat the interlocutor as if he was as he were a real patient, if that were a real appointment. Why? Because many times the candidates are just focused on the card, on finishing the task, going to the next task, and they forget that you're being tested in many things, not only on the task. So you have to pay attention to what the interlocutor is telling you. You have to ask questions that are really meaningful. You have to be polite at the same time. So it's not only what you say, but how you say it. So remember, it is a test, but the interlocutor is a real patient, okay? Or at least you have to pretend that it is. or a real parent that is talking to you, or a real son or daughter that is talking to you, and you should give all the attention possible. Of course, you have to keep an eye on the tasks. You have to try to complete as many tasks as possible. But remember, you're not talking to a machine. You're talking to a human being. And this attitude is going to help you to get the passing score. So today we talk about many things. There are more things that we could talk about on how you can, why you're not getting 350 or more on the OET speaking subtest. But next time we're going to continue working with that. If you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment in our video. Now, every day we upload a new video for OET speaking on our channel. Many times is about OET medicine, but we also have some videos for OET nursing. Okay. And if you have any questions, you can always send us a message. We are always here to help you focus on how you can improve your speaking skills for the day of the test. So thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed learning a little bit more why you're not getting 350 plus on OET speaking subtext. Hope to see you again. And every Saturday, we're going to upload a new live transmission with more details about the test. Sometimes it's going to be about OET, but sometimes it's going to be about IELTS. Sometimes it's going to be about TOEFL. Okay. So thank you very much for watching and have a fantastic day.